Blog Talk Radio.
And once again, welcome to Real Combat Media Radio, the boxing news radio show at www.realcombatmedia.com, where we bring you up-to-date combat sport news from around the globe. This is our 4th episode on the air. If you haven't already, then follow us on Twitter at Real Combat Media, that's at Real Combat Media, and type in realcombatmedia.com to find our Facebook fan page. I'm your host, John Campbell, as always, and I'll be with you for the next 2 hours. You can follow me on Twitter at BoxingJonUK and find my personal fan page on Facebook, which is also titled BoxingJonUK. If you'd like to sponsor this show and grow your business with Real Combat Media Radio, send an email to advertising@realcombatmedia.com. That's advertising@realcombatmedia.com. Another familiar face on the line today is my co-host coming from the Bronx in New York. It's Boogie Down Sean, the Boxing Maniac. How's it going, Maniac?
The Maniac is here, man. I'm feeling great, John. How you feeling? How was your weekend?
I know. I've had a really good week, a very busy week. I actually went down to the Great Britain boxing team facilities today earlier on, and I went and got trained by the GB coaches, got to meet some of the guys who won the medals. I met the gold medalist Nicola Adams, the silver medalist Freddie Evans. So we had a really good day, saw some great fighters and trained in some great facilities.
Oh, wow, man. I mean, I could train you, man. Don't worry about it, man. I was 50 and 50 knockouts, but, I had to retire because it was too easy for me. No, but that's good, man. That's always a good experience. You get in the gym and it's a 9 to 5 when you're in there, man. You got to take that serious. The sport is no joke.
No, it's not at all. We went shortly before the Olympics and we got to see the whole team. Luke Campbell, who won the gold medal, Big Anthony Joshua, who won the gold medal, Tom Starker, the captain, and we got to see them all, but there was only a few of them, and a couple of the girls that competed in the Olympics. Now, we have another great show in store for you tonight. We'll be recapping the Frampton-Martinez bout and also the Andy Lee-Anthony Fitzgerald bout coming out of Belfast in New York. We'll also be previewing 2 fights coming this weekend. Firstly, we have Adrian Broner defending his WBC lightweight title against Gavin Rees of Wales coming out of the Calzaghe camp. We also have action in Atlantic City as Saki Obika takes on Nicholas Sekloka in a WBC eliminator. We'll end discussions by commenting on new developments in the past week surrounding Floyd Mayweather's next opponent, primarily known that Devin Alexander's been thrown into the mix. But what we first have for you guys is an interview with 2 top American heavyweights. Firstly, we have Bryant Jennings, undefeated 18-0. Secondly, we have Tony Thompson ahead of his fight with David Price. Now, what do you make of these 2 guys? Are these 2 still top of the heavyweights? We know that Thompson's been around for a long time and Bryant Jennings is new on the scene. What do you make of both of these guys?
Yeah, we got Jennings, up-and-coming American heavyweight. Ever since Seth Mitchell got upset by Jonathan Banks, he's considered, the front runner, to hold that American heavyweight torch. His future looks bright. He's been on TV his last 4 or 5 fights, I believe, and he's looking good. So far, so good with him. Potential looks good. He's pretty, short for the heavyweight division, but we'll have to wait and see. And looking forward to, his future. and how he develops and, why he becomes, later down the road. And we have Tony Thompson, a guy who's been around, a little older, going up against an up-and-coming, UK fighter and David Price, who's, him and Fury are headed on the collision course right now. And they trying to use, Tony Thompson as a stepping stone. So, let's see if he could pull off what Jonathan Banks did in Atlantic City, against Seth Mitchell. So hopefully he could do that, If not, it's going to be tough. But, he still got it, two or three losses to Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, that's never, there's nothing wrong with that. It's no shame in losing to the Klitschkos.
Now, okay, there is something that I've been interested to ask you. I want to see, from an American point of view. Now, it's quite obvious that the American heavyweight division in the past year has improved quite drastically. But still, to what extent do you see the best heavyweight still being the best of a bad bunch in comparison to the guys over in Europe? Because we know that they've got a lot better than maybe over the past 6, 7, maybe even up to 10 years. This heavyweight division is better than it has been. But to what extent do you still think the winner of the American heavyweight tournament, should there be one, would not have much chance against the likes of Povetkin, against the likes of Pulev, and against the likes of course, Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko?
Yeah, we know one fighter for sure we know, which we had on our show, actually the first episode, was Deontay Wilder. That's a fighter, everyone is saying, oh, he looks raw, but he's fighting mailmen. He's fighting ice cream truck drivers. Okay, there's what it is. But if Deontay Wilder can develop and use that power along with some boxing skills, wow, this guy's going to be dangerous. The potential so far looks there, but we know competition hasn't been where everyone wants it to be. Hopefully from here on out, his competition will go up. You had Seth Mitchell, who was considered a future opponent for Vladimir Klitschko. We saw what happened when he went in there with a veteran in Jonathan Banks. Now Jonathan Banks got himself in the running now to possibly be the best American heavyweight. And, we also had him on our show, and he mentioned he'll never fight the Klitschkos, being that the relationship he has with them. And then we go to Bryant Jennings, who I know he's willing to fight any and everybody. Philly fighter, tough upbringing, and, just that mentality and that heart that they bring to the ring every time they step in there. But right now, it's really no comparison. The European heavyweights are, better. American, they improving. We improving, but it just hasn't been a division that's been relevant for a long time in America. At one point, it was the cream of the crop. Boxing was built on the heavyweight division, as far as you could go back. So soon as, America could develop that American heavyweight, trust me, boxing will be much better. But right now, the European heavyweights, man, they got it, man. They have it.
Now, here's another point for you, Dean. I want to see what your honest opinion of this is. Now, of course, heavyweight boxing and even cruiserweight and heavyweight to a certain degree is very much a German stronghold. It's very much the heavyweight division. Exactly, is always exclusively fought in football stadiums in Germany, big sold out football stadiums. Now, this is quite convenient based on the fact that most of the top 10 in the heavyweight division are European, and Germany is the mecca of boxing in Europe, besides the UK partly. Now, let's suggest that Banks and a couple of American heavyweights start to get up there, start to make a real name for themselves on the world level, and start winning a couple of world titles. At what stage do you think that it will become difficult to get them out of that stronghold? What would it take for the American heavyweight, for the American I do apologise, for the heavyweight division to be brought back to American soil?
Well, American heavyweight, this is just the honest truth. Americans, we don't want a heavyweight that could box, a technical heavyweight. We don't want that. We want the knockout heavyweight fighter. That's what they want. That's what the Americans want. They want that knockout heavyweight fighter. The only up-and-coming one is Deontay Wilder. He's still green. Can't put him in there with a Klitschko right now. He'll get crushed. No way, impossible we could do that. They're going to, either they start getting more technically sound where they could compete with these European heavyweights who, base their style on a lot of technicality, a lot of boxing, movement, using angles. It's not just, brutal, come forward and just, stand and trade. These European heavyweights are not like that. And, and I believe that's the reason why they are where they at. What I'm pretty much trying to say is that the fundamentals, I think the fundamentals is different when you look at European heavyweights opposed to the American heavyweights. There's not really a comparison. Jonathan Banks is a good boxer. I like him. He's one of the few. They can get in there and box and give you angles, head movement. I mean, you saw what he did to Seth Mitchell. He was still green and he made him pay for that. And I mentioned Deontay Wilder. We got to see him. We want to know if he could box for 12 rounds. It's going to be a fight where, his power might not be a factor. Not saying if he lands flush, but the boxer might, his opponent might be doing a good job and avoiding that power. Can he box? Can he use angles? Can he set up traps? Can he do that?
Let's give Bryant Jennings a call and see what he's got to say.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Jennings. It's John Campbell, and you're live on Real Combat Media Radio. How's it going today?
Hey, what's going on? Everything's good.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, D. He's the Boxing Maniac. He's coming out of Bronx in New York. How's it going, D?
I'm good, man. Jenny, how you feeling? Bye-bye.
Everything's good. How about you?
No, everything gravy, Playboy, man. I'm glad you came on the show, man. Looking forward to a good interview.
All right, yeah.
Okay, now, firstly, Mr. Jennings, despite the fact that you're a skilled fighter, you're quite a late starter in the sport. What did you do with your time beforehand, and what convinced you to make the transition into the sport of boxing?
I just was, I just was hanging around, working the regular job. Just playing basketball, just living a normal life until I, just walked in the gym. And I just once I started, it was no turning back.
Mhm. Now, you had a very short amateur career, considering the stage that you've got to in your career in such a short time. What made you decide to go pro so early? Although you are undefeated in 18 fights, do you still feel like you're learning on the job?
Yeah, I still feel like I'm learning on the job, but being an amateur was a lot of, it's more politics than professional boxing. But I just felt as though I didn't want to waste my time. I just felt as though my age was kind of like up there, and I felt as though turning pro would be better, and I think I can start my road from a professional level instead of building up an amateur career.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've already got some notable names on your resume in such a short career. You've stopped Bowie Tapu in the last fight in December. You also won the USBA title against Steve Collins in a complete whitewash, shall I say. More recently, though, last year you beat former WBO champion, former WBO champion, Sergei Liakovic of Belarus. Which one of your fights would you say proved to be the toughest fight, and why?
My toughest fight probably was Maurice Byam in January, because I took that fight on a 5 days notice, and it was my first 10-rounder, and I had to push, in order to win the fight.
Mm-hmm. With Liakovic being a former title holder and you beating him, To what extent does this fill you with confidence about your future and the chances of you potentially winning a world title, or would you consider this as more of just another fight?
Yeah, it was kind of like another fight, but I was definitely happy at the outcome. But of course, I already felt as though I can beat him. That's the reason why I took the fight. So, but I mean, it was a good experience, and yeah, I knew there were tougher opponents out there, but that was just the beginning of Bryant Jennings.
Mm-hmm. Now, only a couple of weeks ago on this very show, a certain Olympic bronze medalist, Mr. Deontay Wilder, came on, and you quite quickly became the full topic of discussion, I will say, Mr. Jennings. Now, he came on, and he quote unquote, you are a must fight for him. He says you are a must fight for him. He considers you a fight that he must have, and he really does want to fight you. Do you share such feelings?
No, I don't share feelings. A must fight for me, for him is I don't know. I don't know why he want to fight me so bad. But the fight was offered at one point in time, and he denied it. And so, like I said, I don't go back around twice. But I just think he needs to just, build himself up a little better, fight better opponents, and do what you got to do.
So you're completely indifferent to the potential fight of Deontay Wilder. You're not. It's not something you're particularly excited about.
No, I'm not excited about it. I know for sure that if he keeps doing what he's doing, it's going to happen in the future. But right now, it's not.
Mm-hmm. Is there any names that you'd like to suggest in the future? Because we have got a few good American heavyweights. We've got Seth Mitchell just coming off a loss. We've got Jonathan Banks who beat him. There's plenty of guys out there. Who are you looking at?
No, I don't really go after names. I go after positions. So I'm on the road to be the world champion, and that's about all that I would call out for right now. Other than that, I just shoot for positions. Whoever holds the position is just the consequences that they have to go through.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking forward, Deontay Wilder did make a good point. He said that he sees it as important to beat all the American heavyweights to claim his spot as the number one American, and then take that title over to Europe and fight the likes of Pulev, Povetkin, and even Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko. Do you see it as important to establish yourself as the best American, or are you willing and able to go over to Europe as soon as possible?
No, I don't see that. This American thing. America is not. It's not an American league. This is worldwide boxing, and just to limit yourself to one country is stupid. You're ranked in the world. You're not ranked in America. America doesn't even have rankings. Only on BoxRank. But America don't have it. There's not a sanction in boxing that ranks Americans. So you can only be labeled by opinion to be the best in America, but you can be labeled by numbers to be the best in the world, and that's the only thing that I worry about.
So you're saying to a certain degree, the best American heavyweight would be based on merely opinion. It's quite a superficial title to have. There's no sort of value to it. Yeah,
definitely no type of value to it, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now, one thing which is good to watch in a heavyweight is the footwork and athleticism that you possess. Is this something which comes naturally to you? Have you always been good at sports? Was you always good at basketball, wrestling, football, growing up as a kid, and then later on in your adult life?
Yeah, I was always good at sports. I always had speed in whatever sport I played in, and the athleticism was definitely something that I had all the time, and I just transformed it into boxing. Got with some good people, my trainers and stuff like that, and worked our way, and then we transformed my athleticism into boxing.
Yeah, now, something which I do like to ask a lot of fighters is, are you a big fight fan? Do you watch a lot of fights? Do you study back to fighters in past eras? Are you a big fan of the sport?
No, I wouldn't consider myself a big fan of the sport. Everybody has, of course, favorite boxing and, fighters to watch, but I wouldn't usually just, flick the channel and say, okay, boxing's on, I'm going to watch this, unless I know the guy or not, unless I actually watched a round or two and it gets interesting. But me just looking for any fight and just to watch it and, studying fights and all that. And I never did that. I never had to do that. So.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because speaking to fighters, I got a big impression that more than half the fighters that I've asked this question seem to see boxing as merely a job, and not a 9-to-5 job per se, but they work, they do the job, they do the training, they do the fights, and then they'll go and they'll leave the sport of boxing. Do you think it's healthy to not live, breathe, and eat the sport of boxing and have some sort of life outside that?
I live, breathe, eat it, and sleep it, but that's only to my aspect. But it's always on my brain at all times, and I leave it up to, not leave it up to, but I go to the gym every day, learning, working on things, and I have a unique style, and that style was created, I would say, by God, because it couldn't be taught. It's nothing. Things that I do, I do things in the gym that I haven't even done in fights yet. So things that I've done that can't be taught is just natural ability, and I don't want to ever leave myself behind another fighter or just, I know certain things that, with the defense, the way you move and, movement, but there's certain things that you can't teach, and those are some of the things that I have, and I don't really pay attention to too much taping, too much about anything. We work hard in the gym and we work on preparing for the worst and just doing any and everything.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jennings, for your answer. If I want to ask you something later, I'll come back to you later. For now, I'm going to let Dee ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Jennings, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on?
Yo, Jennings, so the first question I have, so how's the love, man? How the people treating you everywhere you go now?
The love is cool. The love is always good. I just like people, to people that show love. I like that. I love it a lot. They embrace my boxing ability. But one thing they will embrace once they get to know me is my personality, because that's what captures the people for real.
Yeah, that's good. That's always important, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really attached to boxing. I go to a lot of live events, and 90% of the time, fighters, trainers, etc., they always approachable and willing to talk to the fans. So that's a good thing, man. Always stay humble. The fans will always have your back regardless of what happens. So yeah, man, that's good that you embrace the fans and they embrace you. So also we know you from Philly. Philly has a rich history of boxing, and do you, every time you step in the ring, do you carry Philly on your back?
Yeah. I carry Philly in my back, but I have bigger problems. I think I carry the whole world, all of my supporters in the whole world. I represent Philly. I'm from Philly. I'm out of Philly, and I really didn't have the time to accumulate, what I'm actually fighting for, other than, life, success, family, and for the sake of my neighborhood and stuff like that. As fights go on, I pick up things to fight for. That's probably where my ambition grows and my drive just keep going. Because I pick up things to fight for, pick up people to fight for, and, just get all this, this new encouragement, and it pushes me even more to go take it to the next level. But, Philly is definitely on my back right now. I wouldn't say that, from my past fights, but, everybody's, starting to know who I am and, embracing me as a fighter, as a person. So from maybe 2 fights on out, Philly has definitely put on my back, and that's just something that I carry well, and I'm proud to carry, and I'm proud to be loved by my sister.
Yeah, much respect, man. I respect you. We come from hard places, man, and sometimes we always got to remind people where we come from. That helps us move forward in life. Also, Jennings, you signed with Main Events?
No, I'm signed with Pulse Promotion.
Okay. Well, you've been on TV about your last 4 or 5 fights. Been on NBC, You know, you've been getting a lot of love on TV, and you've been getting busy. You know, you're winning convincingly, and you know, people like that. So, you know, now that you're getting that exposure, do you feel that soon you'll be graduating to the, you know, the big networks, the HBO, the Showtime, and possibly fighting for a world title this year?
Yeah, well, I do believe in my progress. Everything with, you know, life has its steps and life has its processes. So, you know, in the process, you know, I will, you know, eventually, you know, get to, you know, the big leagues and, you know, get through the world title shots and, you know, the HBO and shoot, maybe I can bring NBC with me to, you know, we can do some things at a higher level. Everything's growing and growing as I grow, and for now, you know, everything is everything. And I'm just doing what I got to do for now.
Yeah, because you know, we know how this business is, man. It's a harsh business, and when opportunity presents itself, we know you got to jump on it. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and also excuse me. You're good friends with Michael Blackson, right?
Yeah, that's my man. Shout out to Michael Blackson.
So let me ask you this: if you win your next fight by knockout, are you gonna do the he bitch dance?
You know, that's something crazy. I can do that. I gotta practice the he bitch dance because, you know, as good as I can move in the ring, you know, I got to catch a beat in my head. You know, my rhythm is a little off sometimes, but I got to make sure I don't make a fool of myself doing the heat bitch off beat or doing it all retarded. So I got to practice that. But yeah, that's something that I could do.
That'd be funny, man. That'd be hilarious if you could do that. Last question here: are you willing? You know, being that, you know, you're getting the name here in the States, if the opportunity presents itself, are you willing to go overseas and fight for a world title? Because we know overseas how it can be. You don't want to go over there, whoop ass, and then, you know, they rob you. Now you got to get them back of the line. You know, so is that an opportunity, you know, you're willing to take, or that's something you got to talk with your team and, you know, whatever y'all come up with, y'all decide?
No, that's an opportunity that I'm willing to take. And you know, a lot of fighters in the past that got robbed. And you know, as a fighter, you know that if you want to fight or not, you know, you can't take it away from you. You can take it away from you on paper, but the people that watch it, they already know. And you know, they already know what it is. But you know, they can't rob you forever. But you know, I know that when I go over there, I'm gonna put my all in it, and it's definitely gonna be a lopsided fight. To where I'm gonna work so hard that there's no way you can get a fight to the other opponent.
Wow, that's what you're gonna have to do.
The world really hasn't even seen nothing. Like I'm only just fighting off of these other people's styles. So the better the fighter, the better me. And the more technical the fight gets, the more technical I can get. You know, it's kind of like I don't do too much in a fight because I don't have to. You know, certain things in fights that you be like, well, I don't have to even pull out these tricks to show, you know, to show guys, future opponents that's actually watching. You know, it's kind of hard to figure that out like me. And I only go off of what they're doing. So whatever they try to do, I master and I go off of that. And I make it very hard for an opponent because whatever they try to do, it's not going to work. And the only way I see myself losing is if I get knocked out. That's it. That's period, point blank. That's the only way I see myself losing. And the knockout is definitely possible. It's easy to knock it out, especially being a heavyweight. But I can't see me losing all points.
Yeah, man. Hey. Much respect, Jennings, man. I appreciate your time, man. I really do. I don't know if my host has any other questions for you.
No, no, I'm happy with what we've got here. Thank you very much, Mr. Jennings. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of Real Combat Media, I'd like to say we wish you the best of luck and we hope that you get that world title strap around your waist soon.
All right, thanks.
Jennings,
thanks for having me on the show.
Make sure you practice that dance, man.
Yeah.
Jennings,
me and Mike gonna get together and we're gonna practice it. We're gonna make sure we got it down pat.
It's like, what is this dance?
This is it's this comedian named Michael Blackson, man, hilarious dude, and Jenny's a good friend of him, and you know the He Bitch dance is pretty much like a dance when you know it's like I mean Jenny's explain it, man, real quick to my host.
It's kind of hard to explain. Is it better? You'll have to go through the YouTubes and you know and figure it out. And you know, Michael definitely he puts definition of the He Bitch dance in his YouTube videos and stuff. So it's kind of like you got to go through YouTube and look at it and just look at the history of it. It'll pretty much speak for itself.
Now I'll take a look at it. But is it better than the Gangnam Style dance?
Oh hell yeah!
The Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we gonna push it to get it popping like the Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style is popular as hell.
Would you like to give a Twitter shout out or any form of social networking, any websites or businesses that you'd like to promote before you leave?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out to Elite Class. That's my business. You can log on to eliteclass.com. That's class with a K. Now, you can follow me on Twitter at BYJennings and follow me on Instagram at BYJennings and on Facebook at Bryant Jennings.
All right, take care. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Bryant Jennings, the impressive fighter, an impressive attitude. He don't come on and talk big. He's very laid back, very relaxed kind of guy. What do you make of him?
Yeah. You know, his demeanor was real smooth. As you said, laid back, and he really means business. You listen to Jennings, he's not, you know, real. Oh, I'll fight anybody. It doesn't matter. You know, opportunity presents itself. You know, if it's right, he'll fight. You know, he mentioned we had Deontay Wilder. He said, yeah, you know, he said it on the show. He wants Jennings. Oh, that's a fight I'm willing to take. Jennings was like, look, right now, this fight doesn't make sense. Down the road, I'll take it. He never said he wouldn't fight him. He just said right now it doesn't make sense. You know, and hey, I agree. The fight doesn't. You know, right now Jennings is in a good position where his fight's been on TV. He's getting the notoriety. Like I said earlier, with Seth Mitchell losing, it puts Jennings in the forefront of the American heavyweight up and coming. So if he keeps on winning, we're going to see Jennings on HBO very soon or Showtime, you know, the mother networks, the real big networks where he start getting paid that good money. And, you know, hopefully, you know, with another win or two, he has a title shot. You know, but he has to work hard. He seems like he has the real workman, you know, mentality. He's willing, you know, he say he's in the gym every day. You know, he's getting better. He made a good point with, you know, if he's in the ring with, he gets better as his opponent gets better. If he's in there with somebody that's technical, he's going to get technical. You know, so I like that. I like the attitude. And, I really hope, man, that, you know, Jennings has a bright future. It looks bright as of now. And hopefully, you know, he could win the world title.
Okay, now, briefly, before we call Mr. Thompson, I'd like to put a two-part question to you now. He said that he wasn't particularly interested in fighting Deontay Wilder. This fight didn't necessarily stand out, although he didn't rule it out. Now, firstly, despite the fact that it's a very respectful thing, he's not up and about shouting, oh, I want to fight this guy, I want to fight this guy. Is there still, I got a sense of disappointment when he said that I want him to want to fight Deontay Wilder. Did you get that same sort of feeling? Did you think, well, this fight's less likely to happen because one person doesn't necessarily want it as much as the other? Secondly, would you say that you've got some form of sympathy for Deontay Wilder because he's done so great and he's not necessarily fought the best fighters, he's getting so many naysayers, so many critics that are saying, oh, you're fighting road sweepers, you're fighting bums, you're fighting this, you're fighting that. So he's sort of got to prove himself and shout these guys out and say, listen, I'm willing to fight these guys. It ain't me. It's Golden Boy, or it's my manager, or it's my trainer, and to make it look like he actually is game for fighting these guys, and he's not a pussy, shall we say? And at the same time, Bryant Jennings is getting the credit for the guys that he's fighting. He's getting these good fights and he's fighting good fighters. So he's got less need to shout individual fighters out. What would you say about that?
Yeah, there you go. Like I mentioned, right now Jennings has been on, network television, NBC Sports. Not only he's been on there, he's been impressive. He's winning by knockout. For his decision, he's winning unanimous. He's looking good. When you look good, people want you on TV, especially heavyweights. Up-and-coming American, forget about it. That's like an endangered species right now. American heavyweight. What? You? Come on. So they're going to push him. Now, Deontay Wilder, you could tell they both have two different kind of demeanors. I think Deontay Wilder's more outgoing. He's more, he's willing to say whatever. I think Jennings, that's just who he is. And I understand with you. I think we all want a fighter to be, be specific. You know what? I want to fight such and such. That's what I want to do. We're used to that. A lot of old school fighters were like that. Jennings, it's a different kind of era in boxing. This game has become so businessy. It's all about business. It's not about the best fighting the best no more. And I hate that because as fans, that's what we want to see. I just feel that some fighters have old school mentalities. I think Deontay Wilder has that. I think he's willing to fight whoever. He feels, you're doubting me. You think I'm fighting cookie bakers and dishwashers. Then you know what? I'll fight anybody. It doesn't matter. In fact, let me beat everybody in America first. And then I'll go to Europe and beat up whoever else you want me to beat up out there. Jennings, on the other hand, will feel he's just more reserved. He's like, look, I'll fight him, but just not right now. That's not on my mind right now. So, yeah, I understand with, your disappointment with him not flat out saying, yeah, I want Deontay Wilder. I'll fight him. That's a fight I want. Instead of, him just being nonchalant, he was like, well, yeah, just not right now. They just probably got, two different, right now, both state teams have different, paths for each fighter. And Jennings right now, his team is like, look, we're probably not too far from a world title shot. And Deontay Wilder, on the other hand, people need to see him fight, tougher fighters. So it's just two different directions. But hopefully that's a fight we could get down the road, John. Maybe 2-3 years where Jennings and Wilder are the top, American heavyweights, and it'll be, that fight will be demanded by everyone, the public, the media, fans, and we get it.
Okay, now that interview was brought to you by RCM's Help Victims of Hurricane Sandy appeal. The link can be found at www.realcombatmedia.com, and we do urge you to make a donation if you're able and willing, because the wind's gone away, but they've still got to pay, so help them out. Also, before we get started with the Tony Thompson interview, I'd like to direct you to the Real Combat Media store, which again is located at www.realcombatmedia.com, where we have a range of products for you to try out. We have the elevation mask used to top athletes to replicate your training. Also, there's Alpha Brain, a great new innovative product on the market, which opens up your intellectual channels and allows you to reach your brain's true potential. If you're looking for hemp protein, look no further. It's ready for you at the RCM store, the best protein in the land. Not only this, but type in Real Combat Media when prompted, and you'll receive a 10% discount on RCM store goods. Also, if you'd like to appear on today's show, then feel free to call 347-324-5998, and I'll personally try my best to have your voice on the show. Now, okay, we're going to call Tony Thompson and see what he's got to say.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Thompson. It's John Campbell, and you're live on Real Combat Media Radio. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Firstly, I'd like to introduce you to the person that's also going to be asking you questions from the Bronx in New York. It's the boxing maniac known as D.
Hey, Mr. Thompson, how you feeling today?
I'm good, Mr. Maniac. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks a lot for your time, and I appreciate it. Looking forward to a good interview.
No problem.
Okay, now, of course, we know in 10 days' time, you're fighting the British bronze medalist from Beijing, David Price, at the Echo Arena in Liverpool. I was just interested to ask how you adapt your training to suit your opponent. Do you tailor your training to fight two fighters, or do you do a similar training camp every time?
Right now, it's really just based on, my training. I don't worry about the opponent as much as I worry about the preparation. So we just kind of prepare, to the best of our abilities concerning, me and how I feel and stuff like that. So we don't really worry about the fighters too much. We know how to fight, tall fighters, short fighters, fast fighters, slow fighters. We've seen it all.
Now, one thing which you have with Price is a height deficit of around 2 or 3 inches. Being a big heavyweight yourself, you rarely come across this, but is this something you're happy and comfortable to take on board?
Oh, yeah, I think I'll be very comfortable. I've fought guys taller than me before. It has, and been around. It actually gives a chance for me to, to be the guy that, gets to shrink in the ring and can be hard to hit because I'm shorter, so.
Now, one interesting point to be took from this is that David Price is the most popular sparring partner for Solis, for Chambers, for guys who've fought one of the Klitschko's. Now, firstly, to what extent do you see the similarities between David Price and the Klitschko's, if any? And secondly, having fought Vladimir Klitschko twice, do you see yourself as somewhat more prepared for a David Price fight?
I'm definitely more prepared for a David Price type of fight, definitely. But I wouldn't compare him to Vladimir. I mean, they're just two, besides being tall, I would never compare him to a great champion like a Vladimir Klitschko. He hasn't done anything to be compared to Vladimir except for be blessed with great height and supposedly have a good height. But he hasn't fought nothing near the people Vladimir has fought. He hasn't beaten anybody. And, he just hasn't done enough to be warranted a comparison to Vladimir this time. Not saying that he won't in the future, but at this moment, I wouldn't even, disrespect Vladimir if I compare him Price to him.
Well, yeah, of course. There are physical similarities, but in terms of what they achieved, there is a large gulf that's to be met. Now, how did this fight come about? Of course, you've just come off a title shot against Vladimir Klitschko last year, quite a few months back, actually. David Price has just got to the stage where he's starting to fight world-level opposition. His past 2 fights were, well, no offence to you, I know that you're over 40, but guys who are over 40, but guys who were never at the top of the game when they was in their prime. You've got the gold medalist Audley Harrison, who has become somewhat of a laughingstock, I will say, of British boxing. And also you have Matt Skelton, who had a title shot, but never really made it on the world stage himself. Now, you are an actual legitimate step up in class for him. Now, you're coming off a Vladimir Klitschko fight, and he's coming off a Matt Skelton fight. Do you see yourself as a much more prepared and the one with the momentum going into this fight?
Well, I mean, obviously, like I said before, I do think I'm more prepared for David Price, type of fight. But, he's been fighting, the older guys, which is not necessarily a bad step for him. He's only had 15 fights, and he is taking a huge step up in class in this fight. But this is where you have to give credit to David's people because, they're putting him in there with a real guy. They want to know what type of product they have on their hands in David. And, so I give all the credit to the promotional companies on this one because you don't see this enough.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of David Price's handlers and your handlers, who made the move for the fight? Was you approached by David Price's people and thought, that's quite an interesting fight?
Oh, yes. They called me. They called me. They asked me was I interested in the fight. I jumped at the chance to fight. Even though, they short me on the money, I didn't look at it for the money at this time. I just looked at it for the opportunity. So, when they called and offered me the fight, I jumped on the opportunity.
Okay, now, what do you make of David Price as a fighter? Do you see him as a potential world champion, whether he gets by you or not, at some point in the future?
Oh, I definitely see him as a potential challenger to the heavyweight champion of the world. You know, I mean, like I say, he has good physical attributes, but this game is about more than physical attributes. A guy like Ollie Harrison had physical attributes, and we see what happened with that career. So, you know, as opposed to a guy like me who didn't have as many supposedly physical attributes, and you know, I challenged for the title twice. So, I mean, I think the rest of it's going to really depend on David. You know, win, lose, or draw, it's going to depend on David from here on out. You know, but does he have the physicality that you look for in this future generation of heavyweight? Yes.
No. Of course, he's got a lot of power in his right hand, and you've got wealth of experience. Are you looking to box clever in this fight? Is this your game plan? Whereas David Price is going to probably try and unsettle you and ruffle the feathers quite early and try and land some big power shots to take you out of your rhythm. Is that how you see the fight going?
Oh, yes, definitely. Everybody does the same thing. They come at me hard. They want to speed me up, and then they eventually settle into more of a rhythm to my liking. You know, being an older guy, I'm really going to try to slow the pace and, you know, make him think before throwing any punches. And, you know, just make it a real chess match for him and see if he can make the proper moves and when that being able to do so much his way to victory.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we spoke on Facebook a few weeks ago, you made quite an interesting point, and I really agree. You said that, like, whilst this is a big step up for Price, and it's highly publicised as, Price is stepping up his fight in Thompson, this is really going to test him. And if he has a good win here, then we know that he's going to be a future world champion, and we know he's going to really do well on the world level. But at the same time, you made a point. This also answers a lot of questions for you, Mr. Thompson, because your two recent losses have come against Vladimir Klitschko, who, by all accounts, in my opinion, is an all-time great. Now, the guys that you've beat have been very, very far off Vladimir Klitschko, so it's difficult to tell where in between those two you fall, if you understand what I'm saying. Now,
I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. So, and that's why I look at this as an opportunity for myself.
Is this fight a test to see can Tony Thompson continue to challenge? Will you seriously think about it if it doesn't go your way and you know you're not feeling at your best at this stage?
Definitely. I mean, you know, to me, this is a all or nothing fight for me. You know, you don't do well, you don't win, it's probably over. You do well, you prove you can still win at this level. And I don't mean doing well, losing a close decision. That's not doing well to me. Doing well is winning the fight, being able to compete on that level and winning. And if I can do that, then you continue. If not, it's time, you know, I'll be 42 this year. It might be time to hang it up.
Mm-hmm. Now, should you win this, you've won a big fight. It's quite a fragmented division below the Klitschkos. Are you looking to get straight into the ring with, for example, Povetkin, or a third fight with Vladimir, for example, or would you much rather fight Vitaly?
You know, I had a plan. I know I want to get back to Vladimir ultimately. I mean, I know everybody, you know, scalded that because I really don't deserve another shot at the heavyweight championship. Concerning Vladimir anyway, I lost twice. The second one wasn't a very good showing. So I realized I have to do something special to get that title shot. So, you know, I want to, you know, beat Price, maybe challenge Vitaly, you know, take his belt from him and use that, you know, as inspiration for Vladimir to give me that third spot. I know a guy like a Povetkin would never fight him. You know, a guy like Povetkin, his handlers know that, you know, he would lose, you know, easily to a guy like me. So I know that's out the question. I wouldn't even think about that. But a guy like Vitaly who would fight anybody who's beating everybody, you know, if he sees me as a viable challenger after beating David Price, that'd be a great fight for me. And again, I can use it as a lure for Vladimir.
Okay, now, comparing Price to a few of the other up-and-comers, let me throw a few European names out there, and then we'll come back to your side of the pond. How would you compare Price against Fury, Pulev, and Denis Boytsov?
I'm sorry, you said compare him against who?
How would you compare him against, not necessarily all three fighters individually, how would you compare him against the likes of the young, up-and-coming European fighters such as Pulev, such as Tyson Fury, and such as Denis Boytsov?
I mean, you know, I think all of them offer, you know, unique, different talents. The one thing being, you know, everybody seems to be getting, you know, taller. I don't know what they feed these young fellas nowadays. You know, everybody seems to have the height of a skyscraper. But for me, I think David's probably ahead of that class You know, him and Tyson Fury being 1-1. You know, I think Davis was a solid puncher when he's in the heavyweight division, so I'm going to give him a slight nod at this moment. You know, I think everybody else is behind those two guys.
Yep. Okay. Now, speaking of Americans, we've just got off the phone ourselves to Bryant Jennings, who 2 weeks ago Deontay Wilder said he was really interested in fighting Bryant Jennings, and Bryant Jennings was very indifferent. He wasn't really interested in who he was fighting as long as he was going in the right direction. What do you make of the young Americans? We've got Jonathan Banks, we've got Bryant Jennings, Deontay Wilder. What do you make of these guys?
Oh, I like the young heavyweights or young up-and-comers, especially a guy like Deontay Wilder, who's going to have the size, the athleticism, the strength to compete with the taller, you know, up-and-coming European fighters. And I think that's what it's going to take from the American side. No disrespect to Jennings, you know, but you know, he's a really good young up-and-coming fighter himself, and he is moving in a good direction. And don't forget a guy like Seth Mitchell. Yeah, he lost to a good veteran like Jonathan Banks, but I think to me that's just going to push him more. And I think you're going to see some of the best of Seth Mitchell come forward also. But, you know, to me, I think right now Deontay Wilder would be the head of that pack.
Okay, thank you very much once again for taking your time and talking to Mr. Thompson. I'm going to pass you on to my co-host D, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Mr. Thompson, how are you?
All right.
All right. So, Thompson, as we saw not too long ago, you just mentioned a fighter, Seth Mitchell. He lost to Jonathan Banks. Now, Banks was Mitchell was a fighter that HBO was pushing, American heavyweight. They was trying to push to the forefront. You know, Mitchell came, you know, stumbling, blocking Jonathan Banks. You know, veteran fighter. He took care of business. Now, it's kind of similar here in your situation. You have David Price, up-and-coming European fighter, you know, considered, you know, one of the best up-and-coming heavyweights anywhere. And, you know, they choosing a veteran like you know, saying, okay, we're going to use Thompson as a stepping stone to see where we at. You know, so pretty much, do you think you're being overlooked in this fight?
No, I don't know if I'm being overlooked. I think I'm being looked at properly when you look at a guy like David Price. He's a young guy, he's big, strong, he's experienced in terms of he has a wealth of amateur experience, which also helps in a professional rank. And I think they just think this is the next logical step in his evolution. You know, you can't continue to fight the Max Keltons and Ollie Harrison of the world. No disrespect to either one of those guys that had decent careers. But, you know, it's time for him to take a real step up. And again, like I said, I give all the credit to the analysts for taking this type of step with only 15, 16 fights, however many fights we have.
Okay, D, can I just interrupt you there? We've got a caller. I think you might want to ask Mr. Thompson a question.
All right.
Hello, you're live on Real Combat Media Radio. What's your name and where are you from? Hello, you're live on Real Combat Media. Okay, gone. I'm sorry, D. Go on, continue with Mr. Thompson. Right.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So, like you had mentioned earlier, this is pretty much do or die for you. And you said, you know, even if it's a close fight, you know, it's not a victory for you. But let's just say if you was to lose a close fight, or perhaps a controversial fight where most of the people saw you as the winner, but you know they gave him the win. Would you continue to fight still, or would that discourage you and you say that's it, man? I'm gonna just call it a day?
Well, again, you know, it's a great point. The circumstances would, you know, prove to be the difference in a situation like that. And not only that, the next fight, I wouldn't take any more, you know, build-up fights or somebody trying to make a name off of me. You know, I want to go right into the championship type of level fights in terms of, you know, like you mentioned, Povetkin, who I know would never fight me, or Vickery, or, you know, even a guy who's held a piece of the belt like a David Hay or somebody in that level. You know, I wouldn't, you know, I don't know if I would take a fight like this again overseas with everything like this.
All right. Now, obviously, we know you had 2 fights with Vladimir. The first one you was competitive in. You lost, 11th round TKO. But in the second fight, I don't know, you seemed like you didn't have it in this fight. I mean, what was it, something in your training camp? Was there something going on, or it was just that he was just the better man that day, the second fight?
Well, I mean, definitely he was the better man, but also, saying that, I think it was a lot of me also. I wasn't there. I didn't have it, and I think, like my folks told me, it probably was more mentally than physically, which is why I'm so glad I got a tough fight coming back, because, I think my mental capabilities are back where they need to be to challenge on the world stage. So, it was a little bit of all of that. So.
Yeah, all right, cool. Also, now we know you're going to Europe for this fight, and like I mentioned, in the first question about, even depending the outcome, will you continue to fight? We had mentioned there's a lot of up and coming American heavyweights. Would you fight, like, for example, a fighter like Deontay Wilder, if you're still in the game, if your heart is still in it? Would you fight a fighter like that if opportunity presents itself?
Again, I don't want to take any fights. That would be the same level of fight to me as a David Price fight. I mean, but the difference being it would be in America, so it would be a slight difference in that area. But again, man, I would really just want to go to a meaningful fight in terms of championship challenge, or a fight to give me another shot at the belt. Other than that, I'm not looking to help push another young guy's career.
Yeah, I hear that, man. I hear that. So, Thompson, I want to also ask: do you see yourself after boxing? Do you see yourself still in the sport, maybe as a trainer? Maybe broadcasting, or when you call it quits, that's it, no more gym, nothing. You're just gonna leave boxing, as that was your passion, that's what you did, or you're gonna stay in the sport, helping.
I would love to stay in the sport, man. I would love to get into some commentating. I can't seem to get anybody to, to give me a shot at doing any commentating. But that's what I really want to get into. Man, I want to commentate. I want to talk about the sport. I want to uplift the sport with things that I know that's wrong in the sport, needs to be fixed. But also just want to, call great. And I think that's my calling.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have the voice for it. I can hear you know how you talk. I think you do well. Because, we see with Malignaggi, we see Andre Ward. And like you said, you're in the sport, firsthand. You fought, Klitschko's, you fought in Europe. So, you bring a lot to the table, similar to what Lennox Luna used to do with HBO, man. I mean, I hope you land it, anything is possible.
Yeah, anything's possible, but unfortunately, I'm stuck in that no man's land of never having been a champion, or I'm best known for 2 losses against Vladimir, which really doesn't get you sympathy off. It's really going to take an act of faith on one of the networks to give me a shot, maybe a smaller network, and work my way up. I'm just hoping somebody out there listens to me and realize I have something positive to say about in the sport, and I probably could do a great job with it. I've done some radio, and I've done a great job on radio, so I'm looking to take that next step forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is the opportunity here, Thompson, man. You need to go to Europe, excuse my language, and fuck up David Price. That's what you need to do. I mean, that's what it's going to take, man. That's what it's going to take. You got to let them know, look, yeah, I might have lost the Klitschko, but who doesn't? So if you go in there, take care of business.
You're not Klitschko, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, you listen, you've been in there with better competition than he has, and, you're a veteran. You already know what to expect in these kind of fights. You know, he really doesn't. He's still wet behind the ears. But I take nothing for Price. You know, he definitely has a lot of potential. You know, and I know you won't be taking him lightly neither. I mean, no fighter could take no fighter lightly. You know, when you step in. Yeah, you know, that square circle is a dangerous area, man. You know, so but that's all my questions I have for you, Tony. And you know, I really, you know, wish you much luck on your fight with David Price. You know, I wish you the best for your future, and I hope, you know, everything you want comes true, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
Now, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of the correspondents for the website, a member of the Real Combat Media team, who sent me a message on Facebook. I'd like to ask you about your experience sparring with David Haye. How did you enjoy it, and what do you make of David Haye as a fighter?
I really enjoyed the experience. David Haye is such an athletic. He's smaller, but he's such an athletic and powerful fighter. He just presented so many challenges to me, and you know, I look forward to the challenge every day of trying to solve, you know, the problem of David Haye. And, you know, it was just, you know, as a professional and as a competitor, I love that challenge, going to the gym every day to try to see what type of success I can have against him.
Okay, now I'm going to give you this opportunity, Mr. Thompson, to shout out Twitter, shout out any sort of businesses, anything you'd like to say on the air so the fans can see it.
Well, I mean, you know, I'd just like to say if anybody that's ever been a fan of Tony Thompson, you know, I really appreciate it. You know, I got Miss James, I never figured I would have one fan. You know, I've come to find out I've had many fans, and I've always appreciated them. You know, I kind of went out against Vladimir in the second fight, and you know, I just want to you know, make a point to my fans. They'll never see that type of fight out of me again. I'm just gonna be back to the old Tony Thompson, not just the old Tony Thompson. You know, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to lay it on the line like they used to sing.
All right. Now, thanks a lot. Have a good time in the UK, and I wish you the best of luck for your fight. Thanks for spending this time with us, Mr. Thompson.
All right. No problem, fellas. Bye. All right.
Okay, Dee, we've got another very laid-back, smooth American heavyweight. Very similar personalities to me there. What do you make of Tony Thompson?
Yeah. Tony, he carries himself very well. You know, he speaks as, you know, a veteran. You could tell he's older just by the way he talks and his demeanor over the phone. You know, it's going to be a tough fight for him. You know, Price knows that, like we said, you know, we got Fury and Price. They definitely on the collision course. That's a fight people been, especially in the, you know, more in the UK, been yelling for a long time. And, you know, Fury has a fight here in the U.S., which I'll be attending against, you know, Cunningham. I believe everything is signed. I don't know if it's 100%, but that's the fight that's supposed to be going down here in the Garden Theater. So it'll definitely be good to mingle with the Brits. You know, they could party, man. But you know, like I said, Tony Thompson, to me, he has, you know, a lot of advantages going into this fight. He has the experience. He's been in there with the, you know, with Vladimir, it gets no better than that. Not one time, but 2 times. You know, a total of 17 rounds with him. You know, that's a lot of experience. He has, you know, he's tall, just like Price. Price, I believe, is a little bigger. And it's a fight that, you know, Thompson, this could be do or die for him. You know, like he said, it's 42. And, you know, at this stage, you know, that's very old in boxing. But if he could pull it off, man, now we have a new player at the heavyweight division.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you are right about the Klitschko, but like I think even Tony Thompson, he didn't say it out loud, but I think everyone would agree that the reason why he got beat was because he simply wasn't as good as Vladimir Klitschko, which we can't hold against him, as you said, who hasn't been beat by the Klitschkos nowadays. One thing which I forgot to tell Mr. Thompson is I really appreciate his honesty. He was very, very honest, but very subtly honest. It was like he was saying outspoken things. It's like, whoa, this guy's really being honest. This guy's being really blunt with us.
But if you were to sort of look through the interview, he said a few honest things that he didn't necessarily need to say if you look at it finally. Now, do you appreciate his manner in being able to come and speak to us honestly? Because, you know, he doesn't have to say the things that he does. And I think he was quite open with us.
Yeah, I always appreciate every fighter that comes on and do an interview with us. You know, they taking time out their busy schedule. He has a big fight coming up very soon. You know, mentally, you know, sometimes they don't like to do interviews. They like to block everything out and just mentally focus. And that, you know, then he was very blunt. You know, he said he answered every question. He didn't dodge nothing, and we appreciate that. That's what we want from fighters, because you know, it's also for the listeners. You know, the listeners, they don't want to hear the same old interviews over and over. Like, oh, I just heard the last 2 podcasts. They asked them the same thing. You know, you always want something different, something that, you know, might push them a little. And sometimes they might answer it, sometimes they might not. But he was very forward, and I appreciate him, man. He sounds like a very good man. And, you know, hopefully I can meet him in one of these fights, you know, and even possibly have him on again.
Oh yeah, I speak quite often with Mr. Thompson on Facebook, and he's always reasonably chatty. I think after the fight we'll be able to get him on. When he announces his retirement, we'll be able to get him on. If he fights again, we'll get him on. Tony Thompson's very much a friend of Real Combat Media. Now, that interview was brought to you by Real Combat Media's Feed World Hunger. This can be found at www.realcombatmedia.com, and there'll be a link which you can follow to make a donation to this charitable cause. The Post-Harvest Project provides aid in the form of technologies to farms and fisheries in deprived areas. Now, we're moving on to the discussion segment of our show. Now, if you'd like to get involved, you know the number. It's 347-324-5998. I'm constantly checking, so I want you guys to come on and talk. Now, first of all, we're going to jump into the preview, which happened in the Odyssey Arena in Belfast, where the young undefeated contender, Carl Frampton, won the EBU European Super Bantamweight title in a ninth round KO of the tough Spaniard Kiko Martinez, managed by Sergio Martinez, in a fight which he won tidily, but it didn't go all his way. Now, I've known Frampton for a while, D. He's been on my radar for a while because I'm British and he's one of our top up-and-coming fighters. Have you saw much of him prior to this fight, and what did you make of him in this fight, in arguably the biggest fight of his career?
I saw one of his fights. I mean, I heard of him. I don't know if it was in the Frotch, Yusuf Mack undercard that he fought, that I seen him, or was the Malinaji Sachenko. I'm not too sure, but he looked good. You know, they was very high on him. And he fought. This was a tough fight for him. You know, he showed grit. I mean, Kiko came to fight. I mean, he was landing some body shots, man, that you was saying, wow, what? Carl, you know, Frampton, he showed that he might be a play in this division at 122. You know, he definitely has a bright future. Looking forward to seeing him in the States. You know, that, you know, every fighter, you know, especially, you know, overseas, you know, they make that name over there, and then they, you know, they finally touch U.S. soil to get that real big name, to get that worldwide notoriety. And Carl Frampton looks very, very good, and I hope to see him very soon in U.S. soil. You know, but it was a tough fight. It wasn't an easy fight for him.
Now, let's provide a bit of background. Now, these guys were scheduled to fight last year in September the 22nd until Martinez pulled out through injury. Frampton went on to beat, in my opinion, better opposition in the former world champion from Canada, Steve Molitor, which he destroyed in fact 5 rounds in a brilliant fight. No one's ever done that to Steve Molitor before. Meanwhile, whilst the fight between Frampton and Martinez was on the back burner, quite a big rivalry developed and quite some crosswords were made. In the ring, we saw a decent contest, but there wasn't quite as much fireworks as a pre-fight banter would have suggested. The main reason for this, in my opinion, was it wasn't really in Frampton's interest to trade off and fight with Martinez.
Now, the dynamic to the fight was quite predictable, and it fell in place from the opening bell. Martinez wanted to make this a fight by edging forward, coming forward, and trying to throw his bombs or trying to settle Frampton and get him out of his rhythm. Frampton, on the other hand, was mobile and looking to keep his punches long, sharp, and crisp, taking the rounds on primarily ring generalship. Do you see Carl Frampton as ultimately successful? Because, in my opinion, he didn't get it all his way, and it's quite a worry when he comes and steps up against the guys like Rigondeaux, Donaire, all these guys.
We'll have to see. That's the beauty of the sport. That sometimes we think fighters are ready, they step up, they lose. Sometimes we think fighters are not ready, they step up, they win. Prime example was Danny Garcia, Amir Khan. Nobody thought Danny was going to win. He took the fight on short notice, and we saw what he did. And then we get fighters who we expect them to do good. Perfect example, Adrian Broner. The list goes on. I'm just using, just two examples. And, Frampton, against a Rigondeaux, Donaire, we're talking about world-class fighters. These guys are, the best in the world, in their division, no matter where. Now, Frampton, on the other hand, he's getting that, best fighter at his division in the UK. Now, until he comes over here and proves himself against, decent opposition, then, the U.S. fans get to see him, and he definitely start getting that push. But right now, I don't see him beating a Riggy or Donaire. But we don't know. Styles make fights. And, that's, like I said, it's the beauty of the sport. He did beat Molitor. You remember Caraballo, Celestino destroyed Molitor, too. He put a hurting on them. But, Frampton also put a hurting on them. We'd like to see him. We would like to see him here in the U.S. And, we'll take it from there. But the kid looks good, man. He's the real deal, and hopefully his future's bright in this sport. It's always good to see up-and-coming fighters.
Now, I'd like to give a bit of breakdown on Martinez's performance because I was quite interested. It was what I expected. But the reason why Martinez wasn't as effective as he needed to be to win the fight was for a couple of reasons. In trying to let his hands do all the work, he neglected his footwork and very much presented a stationary target for Frampton to move around. When he did move forward, it was in a straight line and towards Frampton, who had the longer arms and the quicker arms, who could land them long shots as he wanted to. It was playing into Frampton's hands with regards to the feet and the neglect of the feet and the constant aim of trying to land at big shots. He made the mistake a lot of fighters make when trying to adapt the style of that sort of what Martinez was doing. And he was getting into the habit of going for big single punches and not letting his shots go and throwing combinations, which would have unsettled him more than just trying to land one big shot, which can easily be blocked, slipped, parried, laid back, and all the other defences we have. Now, the glaring example of this mistake was Jeff Lacey's performance against Joe Calzaghe. I see this as a very similar performance from Martinez. Of course, he done much better than Jeff Lacey did against Joe Calzaghe, but I'd say the difference in class was a lot different. But Jeff Lacey really didn't do himself any favours in this fight, as in my opinion. Despite the fact he did the right game plan, he didn't do the right game plan and applied the right method with the game plan. Now, thirdly, and this was kind of out of his control, he didn't have the hand speed to counter Frampton. Frampton used his long jab well, but even still, Martinez would have had the opportunity to counter the jab if he had quicker hands. This was something we should watch in Frampton's future when he steps up against guys with the speed like Rigondeaux and Abner Mars, because I think some of his straight punches can be a bit slow and can be a bit lazy at times, and they can be countered. Now, do you agree with this breakdown, firstly, Dee? And secondly, do you think Martinez's loss was due to strategical flaws of his own, or simply because he wasn't as good as Frampton in certain physical departments?
Yeah, he definitely wasn't good as Frampton. You made the good point where Martinez, he wanted to make this a fight, but he was stationary target. If you don't move, you in there with a boxer, and you don't move your head, you're gonna be an easy target. You don't give him no angles, you're gonna be an easy target. And Frampton showed that. He was able to withstand, the pressure early Martinez was presenting, and he took fully advantage of it. He took Martinez's aggression and used it against him, and Frampton, used the jab beautifully, and he gave Martinez angles. So he was kind of whenever if you fight somebody who's gonna stay still, opposed to somebody that's moving, it's easy to hit something that's still opposed to his moving back and forth. So, Martinez didn't really do himself no favors. It's just that he didn't have the skill-wise to, compete otherwise. And that's what happens with a lot of fighters in this game. There's one-dimensional. That's the problem. When you're one-dimensional in this sport, you will be exposed eventually, because styles make fights. You will come across that fighter that's going to expose all your flaws. And we saw that in Frampton, fight where he exposed Martinez. And, going forward with him against any other top fighters at 122, yeah, he's going to have to tighten up on the jab. His footwork as well got to, keep getting better. Because these fighters could punch. You go up against someone like Abner Mares that he could take a punch. You saw him in the Darchinian fight. So if, Mares is moving up to 126, but just hypothetically speaking, he'll fare better against someone like Rigondeaux who likes to box, but someone that still packs decent power. And Nonito, we know he's just athletic. He's just pure athlete. He just could do it all pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Now, with Frampton winning both this fight and the Malta fight, he's safely secured himself in the tier just below the elite guys at super bantamweight, such as Danair and Rigondeaux. He's really established himself as a B-class fighter and someone that can get the title shot at any stage with his two-pass wins. I think Frampton's looking really good, despite the fact that he's far from the complete article. He has tons of potential. He's very good at. His very logical matchup for him to be made with is Ricky Hatton's fighter, Scott Quigg, who's also undefeated, also coming off good wins against Rendell Munro. This is the fight that would be much better to see who's the best in Britain in this division, a division that is packed on the world stage, but it's also packed on the British stage. You have many good bantamweights in Britain, would you believe? Now, moving on to the next fight, it's Andy Lee on the same card. It was Andy Lee's comeback fight against Anthony Fitzgerald, a guy who was put there as a comeback fight, as a tune-up fight for Andy Lee to showcase his talent in Ireland after coming back following the death of his trainer Emmanuel Stewart. Now, he didn't really impress, in my opinion, D. This was quite a poor fight for Andy Lee, despite the fact that he's shown his skills in parts and he's shown flashes of class, which he does as a top 10 middleweight, but he lost a few rounds here when he shouldn't have. If he performed like this against any of the top 10, I think he would have been beat pretty soon. What do you reckon?
Yeah, he's not. I think that Chavez fight took a lot out of Andy Lee, and he looked flat, in this Fitzgerald fight. Even winning, he still won the fight. But it's just not, it was the kind of performance where, if he was in there with the elite of the elite, he would have got crushed. And we don't know, that's a fight where we can say that Andy Lee just have a bad night, or that's just signs of what's to come from Andy Lee. And if that's going to be the case going forward, he's in trouble, seriously. Because there's a lot of solid fighters at 160, and a lot of them could punch. So if Andy Lee doesn't get it together, man, he's gonna suffer another KO loss.
Mm-hmm. Now, this very was a homecoming for Andy Lee, as I've said, and it was a big gulf in class between the two. But here's a question for you, D. What problems are presented to a fighter when he fights an opponent who clearly has nothing to lose because he's so far away from the fighter in terms of his position in the sport of boxing and in terms of skill, that he's literally coming for a fight because he's got nothing to lose. He can put it all on the line. How dangerous is that for a fighter of the caliber like Andy Lee? And secondly, should it affect the performance that Andy Lee has? Should he alter his game plan to take into account that the other guy has nothing to lose? Or should he continue the box the way he should and possibly take risks from one big punch landing and ending the fight?
You mentioned about the taking the when you go up against an opponent that has nothing to lose. But let's not also forget this was also a big fight for Andy Lee, not in terms of an opponent, but just for his career, sake, him going forward, and solidifying bigger fights for him. So I think we know Fitzgerald doesn't have the name of an Andy Lee, but this is also a fight Andy Lee had to impress, and he didn't. He failed to do that. And people watch, and it's like, uh-oh. And, I mean, it's the good and the bad thing for Andy Lee. And I'm going to tell you why. It's bad because, when he goes up against better opposition, and that's the Andy Lee we're going to get, it's in trouble. But then again, it'll probably get him a big fight because fighters will look at this and say, yo, you know what? Andy Lee is a name. I could win him. I could beat him. He's starting to decline. This is a fight I know I could win. So, he might get, a fight, against a decent opposition at 160. Opportunity where it looks like he's going to be the, he's going to lose the fight and he come back and win. Now, we know Andy Lee hasn't looked good since the second fight with Bryant Vera. And not to take nothing from Bryant Vera, we know he's a rugged journeyman. We saw why he did to Sergey and Zurich. But Andy Lee did lose the first fight to Vera, by TKO. And he did come back win the second one. But Andy Lee also didn't look good when he fought Craig McEwen, a fight that he was life and death with him. I mean, he was losing the fight. The only way he was going to win that fight was by KO. He did get the KO late. Then we seen I forgot who he fought. He fought some, I forgot the name of the opponent. Not a big name, but he won. And then he fought Chavez Jr. and we saw what happened there. But he was winning the fight.
Oh yeah, brother.
He was winning the fight, even on the judges' scorecards. So, is this, like I said, is this a fight where Andy Lee just had a bad day? Or this is a fight where going forward, this is what we're going to see. Now, from what I saw, it wasn't good. But I'm not going to just judge him and say, oh, that's how he's going to look going forward. I need to see him in his next fight. And, who's going to be the opponent, hopefully it's a step up from Fitzgerald. And then we could really start taking notes and saying, well, you know what, I think Andy Lee is really losing it. Or we might say, oh, that was just a bad night against Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Now, one thing that I always say about fighters is you can't credit a fighter on his losses, no matter how glorious and how good he fights against an opponent. You can't give him credit in terms of world rankings with regards to that, because a loss is a loss, effectively. It is an unforgiving sport. By the same logic, I would say that you can't knock someone down the rankings based on a winning performance, which isn't as good as one would expect it to be. Now, I would definitely hold some responsibility to Lee's performance based on Anthony Fitzgerald's complete gamesmanship. He wasn't looking to box. He wasn't looking to win the fight in a legitimate sense, quote-unquote, because he was just looking to make it a scrap and looking to unruffle the feathers, looking to cause a bit of a scene in there, and looking to possibly get him out of there or just completely rough his way to a decision. And you see, Lee, it's a frustrating position for Lee because Lee could stand there and throw bombs with him, but the guy was a big guy, he was a tough guy, and it would have been really stupid of him, because if he would have traded with him, would have gone, well, what you traded with him for? Now you've got caught, and now you're completely out of the top 30 of the division. You're never going to come back. Now, because he did box, and in boxing, he sort of allowed Anthony Fitzgerald rough tactics to slow him down and not make him look as good as he did, and sometimes lose a few rounds. It still doesn't take away from the fact that a win is a win, and it was a sloppy fight for him. But I think he'll be bigger and he'll gain more and he'll be richer from that experience. I still rank Lee in the top 10, top 12 minimum. I'd say that he beats Darren Barker, the English Darren Barker. I'd say Macklin and Murray beat him. I'd say I'd put him third in the British. I'd put him as number 3 in the British, but I still think he's a few fights away from a title shot. What do you reckon, Dave?
Yeah, the opponents you name, they'll definitely be the favorite against Andy Lee. Macklin. Macklin's a tough SOB. So is Darren Barker. But I think Andy Lee has a good shot at beating them fighters as well. I don't think it's a huge disparity, talent. We know that Andy Lee can punch, and we know he can box. But
okay, Dave, could I interrupt you there, mate? I just want to get a caller on.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Real Combat Media Radio. What's your name and where are you from?
What's up, John? It's Nestor.
Oh, hello, Nestor. Oh, I'm sorry that we couldn't get you on the past 3 shows. Would you like to introduce yourself and say where you're from and what you do, Nest?
Yeah, sure, man. It's Nest GTO. I host the Boxing Voice radio show. We go live every Thursday and Sunday. We all know each other here, man. I just wanted to touch a little bit on the Andy Lee situation. I'm not really, treating him so bad for his performance because I know he was coming off a long layoff and, the loss to Martinez, the loss to Chavez was a serious loss, and then he also had an emotional loss and a mental loss with Emmanuel Stewart. So, even though Fitzgerald isn't a world beater and he should have looked better than he did, a win is a win, and he's got to go from here. And, hopefully he can stay active and get back into the swing of things. I think Andy Lee was a quite good boxer when he boxed. It's going to be good to see how he looks now, moving forward with Adam Booth, not having the type of trainer of an Emmanuel Stewart that's really going to tell him, with some sort of force and some serious direction as to what to do during the fight, especially when Andy Lee sometimes strays away from the directions that he gets from his corner. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen with him. But I'm not going to be too hard on him, after coming off such a layoff.
Yeah, now, I completely agree with that, Nestor. You brought up a good point. I mentioned that Emmanuel Stewart died and he was first time with a new trainer in Adam Booth. But I failed to put 2 and 2 together and say that the criticism of his performance was very possibly based on the fact that Emmanuel Stewart died. I mean, that's a very good line to be drawn between them 2 points. Nestor, appreciate your input. Now, those are our recaps for today. We're going to move on to the second part of our show where we'll be previewing 2 fights and we'll be discussing Mayweather's next opponent. Nest, you're welcome to stay for the remainder of the show if you like, another 30 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'll remind you once again to call 347-324-5998 if you'd like to appear on today's show. Looking forward to the weekend ahead. First of all, I'd like to make some other results from the weekend as follows. In Tokyo, Japan's Tohimiro Ibisol won the Japanese middleweight title against Sansuke Sasaki. Also, a Japanese light welterweight title bout occurred when Shinya Iwabuchi stopped Valentino Hosokawa. In Chantaburi, Thailand, top contender Tiarachi Kratin-Dayajin won in 5 rounds against Denton Sultan. I apologise that I can't give you a more fuller results as there wasn't much going on last weekend. Now, I'd like to move on to the Adrian Broner and Gavin Rees fight for the WBC lightweight title. D, what do you make of this?
Yeah, it's funny, right, that we even have Ness on the show because Ness put out a video this morning on the interview he got from Broner at the New York press conference. And, he's not giving Reese an inch of respect in this fight. In fact, it's like he's not even acknowledging them. He's saying, who? I don't watch fights. pretty much what he's saying is that I'm going to just go in there, treat him like I treat all my other opponents. I'm going to whoop his ass, and then that's it. I'm going to go and do what I do. But I think regardless, even if he does watch him or not, this is a fight where, we have spoke earlier in the show, John, that Reese will come the fight, but he's outmatched. Right now, Broner, he's a fighter where he's, you see him outside the ring, people are like, oh, he's flamboyant, he's this, he's that, but the guy is focused. He knows what's ahead. He understands that he can be the face of boxing if he continues to win, and not only win in the fashion that he does. He has a fan-pleasing style, and that's going to attract people. People want to see that. I mean, if people want to see Floyd Mayweather and his style isn't fan-pleasing, Broner is. Broner is more aggressive. He hits hard, and, when he puts the pedal to the metal, it's a scary thing. So, I hope Reese really, really comes to fight, because it might not even be a long day for him. It might just last 3 rounds.
Now, what I will say before I bring you in, Nas, is that Gavin Rees is a decent fighter. He spent most of his career at light welterweight, but he always was quite a small light welterweight. He was able to make it down to lightweight. But I was really disappointed when Broner took this fight, because he was a much better option on our side of the pond in Ricky Burns, the WBO champion. Now, I think that this has worked out for the better, since the fact that they're going to have a unification bout between Miguel Vasquez and Ricky Burns for the WBO and IBF lightweight titles. Now, I would see it as unforgivable for Adrian Broner to get past Gavin Rees, presuming that he does, and then not take on the winner of Vasquez-Ricky Burns. Would you agree with me, Ness, when I say that Adrian Broner beats Rees and he must fight the winner of Vasquez and Burns? Otherwise, you may as well get rid of the lightweight division altogether and have them all move up to light welterweight.
John, I totally agree with you on that. The only problem that I'm having is that from the manner in which you're speaking, it seems like you may be insinuating to the listeners that Broner didn't want that fight, but it has to be said that he tried to make that fight at 130, and the fight would have landed on HBO, because HBO was extremely interested in the Broner versus Burns, and Ricky Burns decided to move up to 135. So now Broner's back in a division fight Burns again, and the negotiations fell apart. I spoke to both Broner and his trainer in regards to this, and the negotiations fell apart because Ricky Burns feels he could get more money in the UK, and he's just satisfied fighting European fighters. I mean, let's be honest, his last couple of fights, he's got some names in there, John Murray and Kevin Mitchell, but I believe he fought like a guy that was like 13-0, and there's no reason that a champion should be fighting a 13-0 prospect at this time, especially when there's other champions out there that are looking and willing to, defend and unify. And I think Ricky Burns might have bit off more than he can chew. While I think that his skill set is better than a Vasquez, I think that Vasquez is the better boxer, and he's had a longer time at being, the type of fighter that can fight on the outside. And it's going to be interesting, this fight, to see what happens with Burns and Vasquez, because Vasquez hasn't lost in a long, long time. And, one of those losses is to, I believe, Timothy Bradley, and the other two are to Saul Alvarez. And Alvarez took on Vasquez when Vasquez was, debuting, and then Timothy Bradley fought Vasquez. He had about, I don't know, let's hypothetically assume it was somewhere around 20 fights, maybe between 15 and 20 fights. And then he rematched Saul Alvarez again at 148 pounds. And this is a guy that's fighting now at 135. So clearly he was swelling up to make that weight just to get the money. This is a very, very tough fight for Burns. I'd be interested to see how it goes. But Broner is interested in both of them. He wants to stay at that weight, and he's going to clean it out. And I don't doubt that he would. I think Reese, while he is has a lot of heart, his resume just doesn't live up to not even the competition of Broner. So, I don't know. I'm just looking forward to Ricky Burns and Broner finally stepping in the ring.
Yeah, well, I do agree, and I would like to clarify on that point, Ness. Maybe I framed what I said in the correct way. Of course, Adrian Broner did want the fight with Ricky Burns, and Ricky Burns took it elsewhere. But let me put it to D. I'll put it to you, D, in this way. Suppose Broner gets past Gavin Rees and Ricky Burns gets past Vasquez, which is a big if. I would call it a 60-40 fight for Vasquez for similar reasons to what Ness just discussed. But is it a case of Burns now can't avoid Broner, as opposed to the other way around, which I somewhat phrased it?
It's going to be number 1 and number 2 in the division. So Burns, if it goes as expected, Burns to win, which is not guaranteed, because like Ness mentioned, Vasquez, he's a very awkward fighter. He reminds me of a European fighter. He's not your typical Mexican fighter. He's not going to go in there and brawl. He's going to give you angles. He's going to run. He's going to punch. It's just weird. He just has a weird style in general. And, he's riding, a nice winning streak going into the Burns fight. But I still think Burns wins in a close fight. I think this fight, is going to be a goodie. On the other hand, with Broner, I think we pretty much don't know what's going to happen there. Now, they have to win. They have to fight each other. I don't want all this negotiation. It has to happen. If it doesn't happen, then I want Broner to move on. And what I mean by moving on is moving to 140. Who you else going to want him to fight at 135? Decent, regular competition. It's just wasting time. Now, if he can make money at 135 against a Mickey Mouse opponent, then you know what? I understand this is a business. But like in the video he said, Ness, there you have it. He wants to be a pay-per-view star by the end of this year. And you're not going to do that fighting my mailman. If he goes to 140, if he can't get a Burns or Vasquez fight, he go to 140, there's a lot of sharks in that division that he could fight.
Yeah,
now, a lot of people don't. Go ahead.
The thing is, Broner's an HBO fighter, so that's going to pose a big problem in the Burns fight. I don't think Burns is going to beat Vasquez. Vasquez has been in there with Styles, like an MF Diaz, Mercito Gesta, Quintero, Prescott, even the guy from John's, over the seas over there, John's Zapping Venga, and he's been around all these styles. Timothy Bradley, Saul Canelo Alvarez. He's gonna beat Burns in my eyes. But if I'm wrong and Burns wins and now he has 2 titles, there's no reason that he's gonna come to the United States. He didn't want to come with 1 title and making it a unification with Broner and the fight. So now with him having, 2 titles, I highly doubt Burns is going to come. But with that being said, I just want to say this. People are rushing Broner to go out and move up to another weight division. But there's some fighters at 135 that can definitely test his mettle. And we can see what's he made of because, let's be honest, Eloy Perez, that wasn't much of a test. Vicente Escobedo, it wasn't a test. Litzau, that wasn't a test. But a guy like Raimundo Beltran, he could test Broner. I'm not saying he'll beat him. I'm not saying I'll pick him. But he could definitely test Broner. He could give him some shots to the body. Hank Lundy's a fight. While he may not have a chin, he is a good boxer. That's another fighter at 135. Sharif Bogaré, Richard Abril. There's still some decent fights, but the problem again becomes HBO and do they approve these ESPN-level fighters or Showtime Next Generation-level fighters that do have some sort of skill and the ability to pose a threat. I mean, I'd really like to see how he handles a Richard Abreu, especially after seeing Richard Abreu, basically make Brandon Rios look like an amateur.
He did. And first we got to see what he does against Bulgaray. Now, if he beats him soundly, then you know what? You're right. That's a fight I wouldn't mind seeing, Richard Abreu and Broner. And that's probably the only other opponent I'd be willing Broner to fight at 135, not named Burns or Vasquez.
But what about...
Hank Lundy had moved up. Remember, he was going to fight Medici. And that fight, he fell apart, and that's how we got Mike Dallas Jr. to replace him.
Sean.
Yeah.
What about Molina Jr.? I mean, Molina Jr., they get blown out by DeMarco, but you could argue the fact that, A, he was inexperienced and didn't know what to do in a situation while being overwhelmed, and B, you can argue he wasn't really knocked out, and the ref could have gave him a standing 8 count, and the fight would have continued. He has game-changing power. Broner gets hit every now and then. What if Molina lands a good right hand?
Okay, guys, we need to move on. Can I get a 20-second prediction from you, Nest?
Broner by even worse beating than DeMarco.
Oh, wow. What about you, D?
Broner by body bag. He's gonna body bag Reeves.
Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit more nice to me country, and I'm gonna say Adrian Broner 4, 5, or 6. I'm gonna say Reeves comes out fast. He tries to have his moments. He doesn't get very far, and he'll probably last a couple of rounds longer than most fighters would, simply because he's a tough fighter and he's coming. His game is a badger, but I really after 1 or 2 rounds, I really see him to be completely out of his depth. Broner, early to middle rounds knockout.
John.
Yeah.
John, I know you want to move on, but I do want to say this because I know, you're from the UK. You probably got a lot of UK fans listening. I want to give Gavin Reeves a shot. I mean, Gavin Reeves came over here he's been in New York for 5 weeks already. He's taken this fight very seriously. He's been in here 5 weeks in New York City already, getting acclimated to the weather and continuing his training here in the United States. So he's coming into this fight with no excuses and nothing to lose. And if he can present, if he can be Dan Zavik to Broner's Andre Berto and don't get cut, maybe he can do something. I mean, no one's besides DeMarco has stood there and tried to bring the to Broner. It's just hard to hit him. But I wanna at least say, to everyone listening, don't really count Gavin Reeves out because he's going to come in and he's going to try and win this fight. I mean, he's got a girlfriend and 3 kids that he left behind. Said he's been here 5 weeks. That's some sort of dedication. I've never heard of another fighter come overseas that soon, that early for a fight. So he's really trying to win this fight is all I want to say.
A very good point, Ness. I second that. He really is up for this fight, and he comes from a very good camp. He comes from the Calzaghe camp in Newbridge, Wales. Really tough camp, and they really work hard to get running up and down those hills, and they're really fit. They've got real good conditioning. He's been training in America, as you say, for 5 weeks. His game is a badger. I think he's brilliant. I think he's going to really put the work in. He's going to try and unsettle Broner as much as he can. And as you say, he's going to take the fight to Broner. He's not going to let Broner hide. But still, I think don't count him out, but don't count him in with regards to having a chance to win the fight. Just don't count him out before he gets in the ring, actually. Now, there's one of our recaps of the day. I'd like you to remind you to call 347-324-5998. Now, our final recap of the day is going to be the vacant IBF Super Bantamweight title between Jonathan Romero and Alejandro Lopez. Now, Nest, 2 young fighters looking to make a name for themselves and win the first title and hopefully go on to rub shoulders with the stars of the division. Lopez has 2 losses, but of the 2, he's got the best experience and he certainly has the best resumes. Romero, on the other hand, is undefeated. Who do you give the edge in this fight?
Well, the funny thing about this fight is Lopez, he has one I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he has one gifted decision or one robbery loss. And Romero, he's a pretty good guy, but unfortunately, I'm looking past this fight. I just want one of those guys to get the title, because then Frampton becomes a player in this division. He's already ranked, I believe, at like number 522 in the ring magazine. And then you got names like, Suarez if he decides to stay. And maybe we finally get to see Frampton, jump on a plane and come over here. But I'm thinking that he's leaning towards landing the winner. From my conversation with Eddie Hearns and things like that, I think Frampton's looking to land the winner of this Lopez Romero, and then do a big with Scott Quigg. But I'm gonna if I have to pick, because of course they're doing picks, I'm gonna go with Romero. I'm gonna go with the undefeated know how to lose.
Now, yeah, I personally agree. I choose Jonathan Romero by a late stoppage. I think they're both really skillful, and they both present somewhat similar styles. But I think Romero's going to catch Lopez coming on the way, and I think Lopez has good footwork, but I think he's a bit stringy, not strong and not compact. Now, D, what's your call for this quite quickly before we move on to the Mayweather discussion?
Yeah. That's I'm gonna go with the same thing. Romero in a tough decision. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna really elaborate much. Not a fight that sparks my interest.
Yeah, not really. We've got quite a dry period of boxing for these weeks with the cancellation of the Barclays Centre card, which was a real big disappointment. Now, before we move on to the final topic of discussion, I'd like to ask anybody out there who'd like to sponsor the show and grow your business with Real Combat Media Radio to email us on advertising@realcombatmedia.com. Now, we're going to, last but not least, discuss the revelations made with regards to who will be Floyd Mayweather's next opponent on March 4th. Quite a shock occurred when Floyd announced that despite rumours that Robert Guerrero would in fact possibly be his opponent, actually the IBF welterweight champion Devin Alexander was now the front runner for the competition. Now, there's a number of interpretations to this, and also much controversy surrounding the fact that Alexander's recently pulled out of his title shot with Kell Brook due to injury, but we'll get to that. What I would like to briefly ask you is, tell me what you thought when this announcement was made before you had a chance to analyse and think of all the pros and cons of it. What did you initially think when you got told, bam, Alexander Mayweather D?
Everyone was in shock, including myself. It was something that it definitely came out of left field, something I didn't expect. But when I did hear it, two things came to mind. Was either Floyd is serious or negotiations went wrong with Guerrero and he was using that as leverage, against Guerrero. Rumor has it, that Guerrero turned out 2.5. We don't know how true that is. No one's come out with, the exact numbers. Yeah, that's it. No, nobody. That just rumor has it. And, people saying, oh, Guerrero's stupid. He hasn't even made $1 million yet. He should take that 2.5. But let me explain this to you. You're going against the number one money-making fighter in the world, right? Now, okay, I never made $1 million. But yet, I know the money that's going to be generated in this fight is going to be huge because you're going to have Canelo on the undercard. It's on the Mexican holiday. Canelo's name is only getting better. His competition isn't, but he's still going to, draw some good numbers. And it's Mayweather. Whether people want to see him win or lose, they're going to watch it. Me, I'm going to watch it to see him lose because I just don't like the guy. And I don't think that's a secret in the Twitter world.
Yeah, now, I was really disappointed for this fight for a couple of reasons. Now, firstly, how boring and unentertaining would a fight between Alexander and Mayweather be? I mean, come on. This is the sort of bout that you'd be waiting 15 and 20 seconds for a punch to be thrown, in my opinion. I'm not criticising them as individual fighters because they can both be in good fights like Mayweather-Cotto. But together, there's such a terrible clash of styles that there'd be no excitement. I think the prospects of this fight just completely bores me, considering it's Floyd Mayweather, the biggest money-making fighter here. I personally don't believe this fight's going to happen. Do you agree, Ness? Do you think there's any sort of truth to this?
I mean, you guys pretty much summed it up. I believe everything that the both of you said. That the fight is going to be boring because you got two counterpunchers going in the ring against each other. So it's going to be which counterpuncher decides to become the aggressor. And then I agree with Sean as well that this is a negotiation ploy by Mayweather because of the supposed rumors of Guerrero turning down the $2.45 million and wanting to reach $4 million. And just to clear that up, Sean, he did get I think 1.2 for the Berto fight.
Okay. For the Berto. Yeah, for the Berto fight. But
at this point, it is what it is. I'm just tired of Mayweather. I'm tired of Pacquiao. Those guys. I think boxing would be a lot. Unfortunately, I'm gonna bulk both the Klitschko's into that category, but not for the same reason. So I'll clarify that. The Klitschko's just could beat everybody in the world, and they need to just retire so that we can get that division back because they have it on Austin. They basically have the heavyweight division at ransom right now. And Mayweather and Pacquiao, the world holds their breath to decide, to wait and decide who they're going to fight, when they're going to fight. And, if we could just get rid of Mayweather, Pacquiao, both Klitschko brothers, Bob Arum, and possibly Todd DeBuff, because I like Todd DeBuff, but I believe that he's been trained and schooled by Bob Arum. No implication that said, all of a sudden change style and, start doing fights with Golden Boy. But at this point, if we got rid of a handful, we'd probably get by. And right now, Floyd, be sure that this was just that, a tweet. Start, fouling up things. Think about it like this, John. Devin Alexander is a Heyman fighter. Floyd Mayweather is a Heyman. Why not sit down between Floyd and Heyman and say, hey, just let's throw out Devin Alexander's name, another guy at 147. It'll ruffle the feathers, and it'll bring Guerrero back down to his senses. Because at the end of the day, Floyd, you what you want, but we do need a Mexican for Cinco de Mayo, and we can't give you for Cinco de Mayo because then who you're going to fight on Mexican Independence Day, So
now,
I think it's...
Yeah, okay. Now, let's talk about fighters who he may fight, like realistic and non-realistic. Both of you, what do you think of, starting with you, D, what do you think of Marquez or Pacquiao? I'm starting to think it could be one of them two for some reason.
All right, if you want to talk about a big money fight, the obvious choice is a Marquez rematch. Marquez has become a god since the knockout went to Pacquiao. He was already considered one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time, just one of the best fighters in general. But that win, Pacquiao was beating up Mexicans for years. Marquez couldn't get it over the hump. He puts Pacquiao to sleep. Now, you can say, well, you know what? Floyd caught me when I was at 135. He made me move up. I'm more accustomed to the weight at 147. I'm ready for 147. I'm ready for Floyd. It's a Mexican holiday. It's a Mexican legend. That'd be huge money. But is that a fight people want to see? I think not. I don't. Now, Pacquiao, at this stage, I don't care. I want to see it. A lot of people don't, but the reason why, styles make fight. People act like Pacquiao was looking horrible before he got knocked out. He was winning the fight. In fact, most people agree it looked like he was on his way to stop Marquez until he landed that punch. So it's a fight, if it happens, which I think is never going to happen, but if it does, hey. But my honest opinion, why not Floyd go to 154 and say, hey, let me challenge a fighter like Austin Trout? Now, you might say, why Austin Trout? I'm going to tell you why Trout. These are the two last fighters that beat Miguel Cotto, right? We're talking about the third highest grossing pay-per-view fighter in the U.S. behind Floyd and Pacquiao. Now, you can't give me that, nobody know who Trout is. No. He just beat Cotto. People know who Trout is. He's not a household name? No. So Guerrero's not a household name, and Devin Alexander's not a household name. So you telling me if Floyd was to just challenge himself, go up to 154 and fight Trout, I think a lot of people, including myself, will give him a lot of respect. As a young fighter at 154 and undefeated, he poses a lot of threats to Floyd Mayweather. But people crying about, Trout is too big for Floyd. If he was too big for Cotto, I don't care. You have weight divisions, right? He makes 154. Mayweather fought Cotto at 154. I don't care if he didn't come in. He came in at 150. He still fought at 154. Why not? And that's
I completely agree. And I think this is where Mayweather gets held to a different level as other fighters, because he's okay to fight at 154 against fighters who are natural welterweights or natural light welterweights, but he's not allowed to fight a legitimate 154 fighter should Martinez either move down or Trout. I personally believe
exactly.
In terms of,
it's not to cut you off. I'm sorry, because it pisses me off. These fans don't see it. Like, they zombies, man.
And but I spoke to Eddie Chambers, and he said, I'm expected to get in the ring with Klitschko. I'm not commended on my bravery. Evander Holyfield expected to get in the ring with Lennox Lewis. Otherwise, he's a pussy. But these guys outweigh 50 pounds. You're telling me Floyd, Money Mayweather argue? I'm not a Mayweather basher. But if he is what everyone says he is, which I believe he is, I believe he'd beat Martinez. I believe he'd beat Austin Trout. So why not get in the ring with him anyway and fight them? Like, what's the problem with moving up 7 pounds when you get guys like Eddie Chambers getting in the ring with Vladimir Klitschko? I don't see the problem. Like, it's not like, I'm not saying he's avoiding them because they'll beat him. He'll beat them both. I believe that behind Martinez, Trout is the guy who's most likely to beat Floyd Mayweather, partly because of the size, but also because of the skill. Now, Ness, do you agree with that? Do you believe that Floyd should fight the best guys at 154, like Austin Trout?
I absolutely agree with that. This is a subject that, unfortunately, it causes a lot of arguments, debates, and even enemies, sprout from this type of conversation, because these Floyd fans feel like he should be allowed to pick and choose his 154-pound fights according to popularity of the fighter, the level in which that fighter can draw, and money generated. So a guy like Austin Trout is automatically, X'd out of that list, and all of a sudden Canelo's not too big because he can draw, and it would be a big money fight. But if Martinez could suck down to 154, he's too big. And, if Trout is available for the fight, no, he's too big because he's a natural 154-pounder who comes into the fight at 168. There's just so many stipulations when you start getting into this Floyd Mayweather thing, and that's exactly why I say it's better off if he just walks away, man. He walks away.
Yes.
I didn't miss him.
Okay, guys, we've got 2 minutes left. I'd like you to both say your goodbyes now. Ness, thanks for coming on the show for the first time. You're welcome next week and every other week. Say your goodbyes, give your shout out.
All right. Go ahead, Ness. Go ahead. Do your thing.
All right, well, my name is Nestor, and you can catch me at Twitter at NesGTO, and I am the owner and co-host of the Boxing Voice Radio, and that's at THA Boxing Voice on Twitter. And we go live every Thursday and Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time to 9:30 Eastern Time, and we chop it up boxing, man. We do the same thing you guys are doing here, and, we'd love to have you guys all on, man.
Now, D, we've got a minute and 20 left, so make it brief.
Yeah, you follow me at Boogie Down Sean, the Boxing Maniac. And, Ness, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it, my big brother, and speak to you soon.
Okay, guys, we're now done for today. For one last time, I'd like to thank I'd like to thank today's guests, co-hosts, and more importantly, the listeners. If you'd like to sponsor our show and grow with Real Combat Media Radio, send an email to advertising@realcombatmedia.com. This has been Real Combat Media Radio, Episode 4, bringing you boxing news and discussions, usually every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We also provide the same 24/7 coverage at www.realcombatmedia.com. Follow us on Twitter @RealCombatMedia, and also myself @BoxingJonUK, spelled JON. You can also keep up to date by following our Facebook fan pages, which are again RealCombatMedia.com and BoxingJonUK. Thanks a lot, D, once again, but it's time to go. Take care. Bye bye.